Hello, and welcome to the Gilshrat channel. I'm JB, and today I'm going to begin what I believe is one of my most ambitious projects. So I have this D51 steam locomotive from Kato, and today I'm hoping to install this DCC sound decoder from ESU into it. This will be the first time I will have attempted to put sound into an N-scale locomotive. So let's see how it goes. So this is the D51 200. So this is a D51 class steam locomotive from Kato. You can see on the end. So it's part number 2016-8. And here's the back. You can take a look at that if you want. So this locomotive is just a standard DC locomotive. However, and this is, I'm going to say loosely, DCC ready. Now, I've had in the comments, someone asked me if I ever did any Tomix locomotives or anything like that on my channel. And I have. The Shinkansen was a Tomix train, and so was the very first steam engine that I converted over, which I did not film because it was my very first trial. But that was actually a Tomix C57, I believe. Yeah, C57. And that required grinding out the weights. I had to get a Dremel tool. It was a lot of work. Kato is really the only, well, maybe Micro Ace. I haven't done anything with Micro Ace yet. Really, my experience so far has been Kato and Tomix. But Kato actually does stuff with DCC. It's not their most popular. It's not their most popular selling stuff, but they do have their own DCC system, which I have, which was a partnership with Digitrax. And I think maybe because they have a bigger presence in the European and American market where DCC is much more popular than in Japan, they actually design their stuff so that you can put DCC into it. Some of their stuff, like I've done before, you just swap out the light board. This is going to be more difficult than that. However, in the weights, they have designed this locomotive so that you can run wires. Like there's already spots and grooves for running wires. I'm not going to have to cut anything out. The weight in the tender, there's actually a cavity big enough for a decoder to fit into it. There's even a spot for a speaker. So this locomotive is actually somewhat DCC ready. It's not going to be just plug in a chip and go, but I believe this installation will be a little bit more easier than when I tried installing the decoder in the Tomix steam locomotive. All right, so the decoder that I have decided to put into this is this ESU Lock Sound micro decoder. It's their version 5, and I don't have a Lock sound programmer to download sounds into these, so I purchased one that has the Mikado sounds into it. Now I know that's not going to be 100% prototypical, but that was like the closest I could find to something that I felt would kind of fit. I know that's not prototypical, and at some point in the future, if I get the hardware to do it, I might try to go in and see if I can find a sound file specifically for the D51. But this will at least get it started, and it's much easier to program a locomotive once the decoder's in it than it is to install. So that's the plan. So I'll put that up on the camera so you can take a look at that. If you want to pause and read what it says. I ordered this 16 millimeter speaker. So this actually was separate. I had to order this separately. And apparently speakers get flagged going through customs in Japan. So I ended up having to pay customs duty on this. It wasn't a lot. I think it was like 300-400 yen. So that's not bad, but apparently a speaker is something that you do have to pay an import duty on. Even though I've purchased sound locomotives that have speakers in them, and they didn't charge me an import duty. When you buy the parts separately, you have to. So yeah, so here is the speaker, and we'll be mounting this inside the tender. Everything has been measured out, so this will just fit in there. It's just the right fit for this particular design. There's actually a spot in the locomotive for this speaker. So that'll be going in. So there's all the parts. Taking this apart. This is always the fun part. This is actually not too bad. I've already kind of looked into it. The whole shell will pop off. And then for the tender, you're actually not pulling off the tender, because usually you pull off like the whole sides and everything. You're just going to pull off the very top. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with this part here. So I'm just going to very gently pull up on the cab, and you can see that this loosens up, and that whole piece just comes right off like that. So that wasn't too bad. Put that someplace safe, far away from the soldering iron. Do not want to melt that. Okay. Next, we got to pull apart the tenders where we're going to put the decoder. So this actually, you're just going to be popping out the coal load area, or the top. So to do this, you're going to have to kind of get a good grasp. Just kind of gently, this part, just got to gently work it. It will come loose. There it goes. Alright, so that whole piece just pops out like that. So to take this apart, you can see there's the little snaps here, 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 so 3 of them. And just gently put the screwdriver in there, loosen it up a little bit. For that. So there we go. This cold load wants to keep popping out. Right, we'll put you at the detail parts. So this side's loose. And we'll just do the other side, same thing. Pop those out. Alright, so that comes apart. And here's the cavity I mentioned earlier, where the decoder and the speaker are going to go. You can see there's actually here, this rounded out area here, this is where the speaker will go. And you can see too, if you look carefully, there is a notch opening here, so I can run wires through that. And then if you look at the locomotive itself, you can see down in there that there's also a notch opening here. You can see the screwdriver pokes through like that, so I can run the wires through there. Okay, so there we go. And alright, so that was pretty easy. So it looks like the motor is just gonna slide out real easily like this. Wow, like I said, oh wow, so there we go. And see, this is already insulated. So you can see this locomotive, while it's not, it's not plug and play, they've designed it so everything's easy to get to. So when you want to put DCC into it, you can. So yeah, so this is now isolated. I just have to take the solder off this, solder in my leads for my decoder, and I'll have the power go into the motor. See that there's a groove right here, and this groove is where we can run the wires along the top here and up into this forward LED so that we can have our headlight lit up. So here's the decoder. It is mostly wrapped in plastic, but there's a couple spots where I'm a little concerned that the plastic may have gotten loose. So I probably will wrap this with one thing of Compton tape. Now in the instructions it said not to wrap the decoder in electric tape because that could insulate it and it could overheat. I don't know about Compton tape, but it's going to be sitting in a cavity between 2 metal weights. So we need to make sure that this decoder is very well insulated or it's going to short out. Now I have my speaker here. Alright, and then here we have the decoder. So the decoder, to kind of give you an idea of how this works, you have 2 halves of the weight. We're going to have to put, you can see that's, it just fits in there. And then the decoder, which we'll probably do like that. This all have to fit in together inside of this. So it's going to be tight. It's going to be a tight fit, but it should all fit in there. I have these copper tabs, and these copper tabs touch the wire or the pickups on the tender. And then this little part of the weights that stick down, they actually touch contacts, which, let's see if this will show up on the camera. Yeah, you can see this these metal, I guess they're wires, but they're solid. Like they don't really, they're not like a flexible wire. They're just in there. They bring power up from the pickups in the front of the locomotive. So this actually gives you power pickup the whole thing. And then that metal touches these weights. That's why these weights need to make sure they're isolated from the decoder, because these weights are live. They have electricity going through them. So what I'm thinking would be easiest is going to be to bring in my electric power. Okay, I'm going to solder my power leads from my decoder onto these copper tabs here, because they're going to get power from the bottom, and they're also going to be touching this. Usually, my experience has been you get a much better connection when you solder to the copper, not the metal weight. And I think that's how I've done the ones in the past. So let's take a look at the wiring diagram. So usually you have your red and your black are the wires that are used to pick up power from the track. So we got, here's red, and here is black. This will be your right wire and your left wire. And what I'll have to do is solder those onto this thing, and then make sure that these weights can still go in just about here. Right there is where we're going to want to solder onto this. It's right there and there. These can actually be popped out. Yep. Snip these. And the fun part, these are very small wires, so sometimes my wire strippers don't like the teeny tiny wires. Sometimes they just don't. Oh, okay. They ripped the whole thing apart, but this went pretty well. Okay. Let's do this one. Fold it up around there, just so these alligator clips, they're a little bit insulated, they don't dig into the decoder. Alright, now we got our wires coming out like this. Now we know about where they need to solder. Alright, so we got our solder here. We got our flux. Tin my iron here. Clean it off. Okay. Oh, okay, that flowed very well onto there. Tin soldering iron a little bit. And that flows right on there. We have our harness. So now we got to attach the speaker. According to this, is the brown wires that go to the speaker, and polarity doesn't appear to matter. follows right on. It'll kind of fit over like that. And I gotta be careful because I don't want to melt the solder joint itself. Not to burn myself. So we're going to use my test track. And we're going to see how the decoder, if this sound card part actually works. Okay, so before I'm going any further, I have decided to test and make sure my decoder's working. So we've got the speaker soldered into the harness, and we've got our power leads going to the little strips where they're going to pick up power. So what I've done here is I used some alligator clips. I've connected the red and black wires to the track to pick up power, and I've connected the orange and the gray cables using the yellow and white alligator clips, and I've connected that to the LT1, which is this thing here from Digitrax, and that's to test your decoder. So what you do is I've put track power on. Let's say we want to go forward, give it some steam. You'll see that that light, the LED, comes on the LT1, and we'll stop it. Okay, bring it to a stop, reverse, and let's bring it up. The other light comes on, good. Now I'm not hearing any chuffing or anything, but when I hit some of the accessory sounds, those come on. So I think it's just because it's not getting any back EMF from the motor to indicate that it's moving. But there's a bell. So I'll have to play around with it, but you can hear we're getting some sounds. So that's good. Well, this was a big pain, but we got it. So you can see I had to cut this all open, but what I'm going to do, so if you look, there's already a coal load on this side, just like that. What I will do is there's this second retaining wall, so I will somehow figure out a way to simulate a coal load on this side as well. I'll have to make something, and that'll cover that up, so it'll just look like it's got a very giant coal load. That's not 100% prototypical, but that's what I got to do to make this decoder fit in there. So that's what I'm going to have to do. So now all I got to do is fish these wires through this opening here, and we'll be ready to start connecting the motor and the light. So we're getting there. We're making some progress. The motor shouldn't be that difficult. We can do the motor actually be really easy. I just have to solder wick these, make sure we got the polarity right on the motor. Okay, well, that worked pretty well. Let's test this. We have it on the track. Oh, we got motor connection. Alright, good. Now we gotta do the lights. Yep. Strip this down. And then we'll solder together and put a little bit of insulation. We have a little issue with the LED. I burned it out, which kind of sucks. But I went and I ordered some micro LEDs. So I'm just going to swap out this card and just set it up in there. It should be okay, I hope. But yeah, so we'll have to rig that a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and put this all back together. Need to put a resistor in between these LEDs and the decoder, or I will burn them out. I learned that the hard way. I basically am cutting up this old board and I pulled the resistor off of it, and I'm going to solder it in to this LED that I purchased. I've already kind of tested it out on here. So I burned out the LED on the original light board. So I had to take it off, and then I soldered in this new LED, just using the contact points, making sure that I'm using make sure the resistor is in the path so that it all works. Alright, so we got testing here, and the light does work. It's staying on. It's not burning out. If I go forward, turns off. Alright, we have success. Yes. Now we got to get this all back together. Alright, so as you can see, the rear light comes on. And the engine goes backwards. Stop. And I can have go forward and it turns off. Reverse, it turns on, light off. Alright, so now we just got to put the light in the locomotive and we'll be almost done with this. And I'm going to take these wires out and solder in these wires. This will give me a lot of length. And then I will attach those to the blue and the white wire. And I also have made my coal load, so I'm going to have to cut this out. But I think it does a decent job matching. It's not perfect. What this basically is I took ground turf. It was actually originally brown, and I wetted it with some scenic glue and like 70%, it's the mix of scenic glue and water. Let it sit on this piece of paper. And then I thinned out some black paint, and I dripped the paint in here, let it soak in, let it dry overnight. So what I'll have to do is just cut it out very well. Now I do have this template here. Of course this is black, so I got to figure out how I can mark it so I can see it. But if I can get this nice cut out, then I will be able to set this coal load in here where I had to cut the hole, and that will cover that up, and this will be done. Alright, here is our moment of truth. Got power. The headlight does come on. That's good. Can't see on the camera but I can put my finger up there. You can maybe see. Yeah, you can see it's lighting up on my finger there. Okay. We go forward. Yep. Reverse. Okay. So now, the only thing left is putting the coal load in. We're getting so close to having this thing done. Alright, we're really close to finishing this. Pretty much at this point, I just got to get this coal load cut out so we can put this back here. And then I'm going to add the detailing parts. Well, let's see how it works. It's kind of hard to see here, but the headlight is on. There's a weird sounding whistle. I think it's because my speakers are just so small. Okay. That works. Let's go in reverse. Alright, let's put it on the layout. What are my thoughts after completing this project? Well, overall, I'm very happy with how it turned out. The locomotive runs great, the sound card and everything works well. It was a bit tricky getting everything to fit inside such a small place inside the tender, but overall, I think the installation went well. However, I did make one major mistake, and anybody who has installed sound decoders probably noticed this right away. And that is, I did not put an enclosure around the speaker. And because of that, the sound is very quiet and a little bit chintzy. When you put a sound decoder or a speaker inside of a locomotive, you need to have a housing around that speaker to cancel out the sound waves coming from one side of the speaker. Otherwise, they cancel each other out, the ones coming from the front and the ones coming from the back, and it greatly reduces the sound quality coming out of the speaker. I didn't do that with this. It's very small. The speaker itself barely fit inside the spot that was built for it. I've looked online and several people have suggested using hot glue to seal up around the speaker and basically try to make the tender itself a speaker housing. So maybe down the road I'll try that. But for now, it's working, it's running, there's a little bit of sound. So for now, I'm happy with it. So thank you for watching this video, for making it to the end, and I hope you learned something new. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you like this video or are interested in Japanese trains or trains in general, I invite you to please subscribe to this channel. You can also check out my website at gilshrat.info. Additionally, I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/Gilshrat and Twitter at twitter.com/Gilshrat channel. And once again, thanks for watching.